Our second oldest son has a powerful testimony all his own. If you question God's existence or whether he plays a role in your life, I pray that this story will confirm that he loves us more than we know. It was late August in the summer of 2002. Our oldest son was 3 and our youngest at the time was 19 months old. We went on one of our many camping trips, and it was a beautiful sunny August day. My husband and our 3-year-old were walking down a nearby creek, and our youngest wanted to join them. So I sent him in their direction, and I looked for wood for our fire we would need that night. Where we go camping, it's a primitive site, and it's free to camp as there's no amenities. So we truly do rough it. Around 6 p.m. or so, I saw my oldest and my husband come up from the creek. Our youngest was missing. You go into an immediate panic. I was amazed at the adrenaline rush I had received. I was able to run down the trail where the creek is in what felt like 5 minutes flat, hurling myself over trees and under them as well as they blocked the path. We went frantically calling for him. My husband and I searched a while and heard a car stop at the road above us and open a door. I then heard the door close. My heart stopped. Did someone just take our son? My husband jumped into the car and raced down to the nearby campground to see if anyone had heard or saw anything. He then went up the road from our site and saw a couple camped at a junction. In the many years that we have been camping there, no one has ever pitched a tent and utilized that certain area as a site. I felt darkness setting in and found out that someone from the campground had driven up to the ranger station and called the police regarding our missing son. We were greeted by search and rescue. They began to line the road above us and would not allow us to leave the site. While all this was happening, my sister-in-law and her family had traveled all around looking for a campground to camp at, knowing where we may want our space, but everything was full. They were able to take a last spot at the campground nearby until they heard that a 19-month-old toddler was missing. They went into action knowing they had a nephew that age. They knew where we camped and decided to grab all their things and meet us at our site. And they helped us in the search since we were forced to stay put in case news came about our son. We were informed that toddlers move a mile an hour, which had us terrified, and due to the possibility of abduction, they were searching all vehicles coming and going out of the area. It was a jumble of emotions as we helplessly watched campers helping in the search. We were hearing about search and rescue people coming off a 12-hour shift just to look for a missing toddler in the woods at night. It was overwhelming, to say the least. At around 2 a.m., I suggested my husband call his parents. He notified them, and they rushed up to see all these vehicles lined up everywhere. It was a horrific night of hearing everyone calling out for our baby. There was no sleeping. It was a cool night that was an unbelievably bright moon, and I kept looking in the tent at his empty bed, trying not to let my emotions get the best of me. Around 6 a.m. or so, I think we tried to get some sleep. I went back out and watched this team of searchers start a grid search of the area. I think it was about 7 a.m. at that point. I watched my husband's family joining in the search for our missing baby. It was something I'll never forget. I finally decided that I needed to get some rest and laid down in the tent. And I remember around 9:07 hearing someone's radio saying, "Subject has been found," and hearing the scream of our son. He happened to wander into the camp of the couple at the junction where no one ever camped before to our knowledge. I leapt out of that tent so fast and felt that it took an eternity for them to bring my baby back. He was found with one shoe, one pant leg off, and scratches all over his precious exposed leg. We were greeted by someone holding him, and we couldn't hold him enough. We were given bottled water and the biggest truck of McDonald's breakfast burgers and hash browns you've ever seen. It was something. What we didn't know at the time was that my mother-in-law had contacted her massage therapist before leaving, and she was running from church to church that morning asking for prayer. She just so happened to interrupt a prayer service the time that our son was found, and a woman reassured the therapist that our son was just fine. I didn't realize that the Sunday we returned home, we would be greeted by a reporter. They left a note on our door and shortly showed up to get the story. At the time, we were annoyed, but looking back, I realized that during this time, they were also searching for Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis. This was a ray of hope, and what would turn out to be a very sad time shortly after our story broke that the 2 girls' bodies were found. We ended up doing 2 interviews and a story for the Outlook in Gresham. It was amazing how facts weren't relevant, but just getting the stories out was what mattered. Thanks to my husband personally going to the Outlook to make sure that at least one media outlet had the correct information. About 3 weeks later, we received a package in the mail. It contained a letter and a pillowcase with a "Now I lay me down to sleep" prayer on it. And the letter stated that around June, this woman who sent the letter had a dream. She dreamt that a toddler would be lost in the woods and that angels would surround him all night and keep him safe. This woman was also the same woman who comforted our massage therapist with the news that her son was just fine. She wrote in the letter that the encounter during their prayer time was 9:07 a.m. It sent chills down my spine. We would return a week later to the spot our son was found. He was real emotional and showed us this little sapling he slept under during the night. There was a little hole dug there where he slept face down, curled up in a ball. The next few months would be difficult, watching our son crying out to us, still asleep and arms up and trying to comfort him. It took time to eventually stop the nightmares from coming. What I love about this story is the strategy that God took in orchestrating it and knowing we were able to witness firsthand how much God does in the most dire circumstances. He truly does love us. Our son does not remember any of this. He knows he has a fantastic testimony to give and that this incident has never stopped us from camping. In fact, we have named this site after him. It just goes to show that God is in control and could explain my son's need to be a daredevil and how he pursues free running and parkour. For a mom, it terrifies me, but for Dad, he's nothing but proud. We truly have been blessed by God, and we know of more times than not that God has been there for us and will continue to be. Recently, our son was terminated as a volunteer at the gym closest to our house. He has the option of 2 gyms in the area, and people from the other gym were asking him to join theirs, even though he would later be ousted from that gym as well. What bothers me in talking to my son is what the alternative is for him, someone who strives to be better when they already have learned all they can from these 2 gyms. I wish we could do something or build something for my son's passion. He was dedicated to learning and teaching others what no one else was able to teach. He is talented and gifted, and jealousy won out in the pursuit of something my son truly loves. For 18 years old, I prayed for an opportunity to present itself to our son, who still has the mindset to train and teach others from our home. He has bounced back rather well, and we couldn't be prouder of our son.